For 18 years and 3 generations, we've designed Xbox consoles to power your dreams. Our fastest, most powerful Xbox.
What's good, my boys? Let me first start off by saying, holy, that last console killer video went kind of viral. I guess when you show someone how to build a gaming PC for around $300 that absolutely destroys the PlayStation and Xbox, people take notice. But after all the success from that video, a few of the PC parts became very difficult to obtain, especially the motherboard. As hundreds of you guys completed and loved the build, word got around in the comment section. The motherboard used in the build is now almost impossible to find on eBay, especially at a fair price. The board used in that build was an older Dell workstation board, so you can't just go to your local Best Buy and pick this part up. So, this is one of the main reasons for the Console Killer V2. This build is still right around the $300 price tag, but this time we used newer, faster, and more readily available components. The second main reason we are doing a V2 Console Killer is that the next-gen consoles have just been announced. The one that is taking the internet by storm is the Xbox Series S. At $300, it offers 1440p gameplay and 120 FPS. Packing 4 teraflops of GPU power, this is almost double the power at the same price of the PS4 and the original Xbox One that only had about 1.8 teraflops. But what if I told you our Console Killer PC build packs a whopping 6.2 teraflops for that same $300 price tag and can run games like Fortnite and Valorant at almost 200 FPS and is capable of 4K? So before you go out and decide upgrading to that shiny new Xbox Series S, hear me out, brother. People are super hyped for the Series S, as for the first time in console history, these consoles are going to support 120 FPS gameplay. The Series S is also going to offer 1440p resolution at 60 FPS over the previous generation's 1080p resolution. This is achieved by packing that 4 teraflop GPU in the Series S, but in the PC gaming scene, 120 FPS in 1440p is nothing new. In today's current market, these numbers can easily be achieved with a sub $100 budget graphics card. For this build, we are going with the Amd Rx 580. The 580 is one of the best budget graphics cards on the market. We have used this card in countless budget builds, and there is simply no other card that offers this kind of price to performance. The RX 580 can be bought on eBay for around $100 to $120, and it produces a whopping 6.2 teraflops. Even its little brother, the RX 570, is still a budget powerhouse at only $90 that produces 5.1 teraflops. So with the RX 580 in our build, we are working with 6.2 teraflops of GPU power over the Series S's 4 teraflops. This will result in more frames in higher resolution, plain and simple. It does lack things like ray tracing. Ray tracing provides much greater lighting and shadows in-game. It is a feature present on the more expensive high-end graphics cards like the RTX 2080, a card that has 11 teraflops of power. With the Series S only having 4 teraflops of power though, I'm assuming the ray tracing on the Series S is going to be very minimal, and it is more of a marketing ploy. The Series S uses the Zen 2 architecture, better known as as Ryzen in the PC community. These Ryzen CPUs have taken the PC gaming scene by storm, offering amazing price to performance. Many YouTubers will use these Ryzen processors in their budget PC builds, but a decent Ryzen CPU for a budget build usually starts at $100. As our entire budget is $300, this wasn't a viable option. If you're coming from our last console killer video, you'll know that we were able to get amazing results using old Intel server CPUs called Xeon. These Xeon CPUs are the server equivalent to the desktop Intel i7. The difference is Xeon CPUs can be bought at an extremely good value. For today's build, we are using the Xeon E5 1620 V2. This CPU is a 4-core, 8-thread chip that has a base clock speed of 3.7 GHz and boosts all the way up to 3.9. This is with zero overclock. This CPU can be bought for around only $20, and it produces almost identical results to the i7 3770, which only has a base clock of 3.4 GHz. The i7 3770 is currently selling for around $100 to $120. While our CPU is less powerful, it is more than capable of handling every single modern title on the market and the newer ones soon to come. As the focus of this console killer build is to provide the most powerful budget gaming experience, we wanted to put the bulk of our budget into the graphics card and try to save on these other components. Another massive benefit and money saver of using these server grade CPUs over desktop CPUs is that they use server RAM. This RAM is called ECC RAM. ECC RAM can be purchased for more than half the price of normal desktop RAM. I purchased 16 gigabytes of ECC RAM for only $25. That same 16 gigabyte DDR3 desktop RAM goes for about $60. A major component we must consider when building these Xeon-based budget gaming PCs is the motherboard. Unlike your standard motherboard, the OEM Dell and HP workstation motherboards we use for these builds are quite large, at times twice the size of their desktop counterpart. In the last console killer build, we went with an older Dell workstation motherboard that had a ton of proprietary connectors and was just straight up ugly. It was also missing some key functions like USB 3.0. For this build, we are going with an HP workstation motherboard. This build is much cleaner looking, quite a bit smaller, and this time supports things like USB 3. The only proprietary connection on this board is for the power supply. These HP boards use an 18-pin adapter for power over the industry standards 24-pin. This is an easy fix though, as power supply adapters can be bought on eBay for around just $8. While this board is smaller than the previous Dell workstation board we used in the past, it still requires an EATX case. EATX cases are on the larger end of PC cases. ETX cases must be used with this build, as standard ATX cases don't provide enough space to house the motherboard properly. While you may be able to fit this HP board in some standard ATX cases, you won't have enough space to insert and route the necessary power cables. Another big upgrade we are seeing in this upcoming console generation is the addition of an SSD over your standard hard drive. And you guessed it, our budget PC build is packing one of those as well, but this is where I hear the fanboys raising their pitchforks. These next-gen consoles are going to be using an NVMe SSD, which are quite a bit faster than your standard SSD. While our PC is only using a standard SSD, it still provides massive speed and load time improvements over the last gen's basic hard drives. A major complaint and issue I saw in the comment section on the last console killer build was upgradability. These people are usually comparing our builds to things like Ryzen builds, meaning if I built a budget gaming PC using a Ryzen CPU from last year, in a few years, if I wanted to, I could upgrade and change out my CPU to a current Ryzen model, as it is actively being produced and supported. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I disagree with these people. After doing countless hours of research on these Xeon processors, the model we used with this build, aka the E5-1620 V2, does indeed have an upgrade path. While you may not be upgrading your CPU to the latest 2020 CPU, this line of Xeon CPUs is called Sandy Bridge. The E5-1620 is only a 4-core, 8-thread processor in the Sandy Bridge Xeon line. Sandy Bridge also has 6 to 8-core processors, which can easily be swapped out for the E5-1620 and will work flawlessly with all the parts within our current build. 6 to 8-core processors provide massive improvements to performance if you plan on streaming or video editing. And if you were paying attention, you would have noticed while we were benchmarking and playing all the games in this video, we were only using around 50% of the CPU's performance, while the GPU was usually maxed out at 100%. This means we could upgrade this build with a more powerful graphics card if we so desired down the road, like a 1660 Super or a 2060 Ti. These would provide massive improvements on your overall gameplay, giving you even more frames in more stable 4K resolution. So while we may not be upgrading to the newest products and platforms on the market, this PC does offer an upgrade path. So that's it for today's video. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for all the support on the channel lately. I hope this video has helped you if you're on the fence about buying a next-gen console or finally making the switch over to PC. We are going to continue this console killer series, with the next one being a $350 streaming PC. It is a very similar build to the one you just watched, but we will be using one of those 6-core processors we spoke about. The PC can game at 144 FPS while outputting a 1080p stream to Twitch or YouTube. It is a beast. Then we are doing a $500 console killer that is on par with the PS5 and the Series X, with ray tracing and an NVMe drive. If you are interested in seeing those, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. And again, if I was able to help you in any way, or just straight up open your eyes a little bit to the true potential of budget gaming PCs, slap a like on the video. It helps me out more than you know.